Marantas are one of the more stunning plants to grow. However, these plants are sensitive and it can quickly become a nightmare trying to grow a maranta, especially when brown leaves occur. It can be very discouraging to grow this plant. One of the reasons for that is that marantas are sensitive to household condition changes. They can't cope with quick changes in the household. So placing a maranta underneath vents, like air conditioning vents, or near a heating vent, or near a window or doorway, the condition in that area can change quickly. Either the moisture in the atmosphere can drop quickly and the humidity drops, or the temperature drops. Like placing a maranta near a window, the actual temperature at night can drop quickly, and then the maranta can't cope and it will show up very quickly in the leaves. I used to think that tap water was fine watering a maranta, but unfortunately tap water these days contain a lot of chemicals in it. It can contain things like chlorine, it can contain fluoride, it can contain bromide as well. And these marantas are very sensitive to those chemicals because those chemicals can damage the actual cells in the leaves and quickly the leaves can become brown. I used to think just getting a watering can of tap water, putting it aside, that will get rid of the chlorine, but unfortunately it's not always the case because these days tap water can also contain a derivative of chlorine, which is chloramide or chloramate, and this does not, leaving tap water outside for 24 hours, the actual chemical doesn't evaporate from the tap water. And also chlorine is used to prevent rotting of the teeth, but this also, leaving tap water for 24 hours aside, the chlorine is still in the water. It's better to use things like rainwater or distilled water, which is, distilled water is basically water that has been heated and the steam from the evaporated water is collected. So that's distilled water. And filtered water is basically using a filter to filter out all the chemicals in the tap water. The easiest and cheapest way is that if you're in an area where you have a lot of rain, collect the rainwater. Marantas do like high humidity, but what's more important to have humidity that is more stable. Marantas can't cope if the humidity is high, then all of a sudden drops. I used to use a humidifier on my maranta and I used to push the humidity in that area to about 70%, and then when I turned it off it went down to about 50%, and I found that a lot of the leaves suddenly turned brown. And since I stopped using the humidifier and the humidity in the area that my maranta is in is about 50 to 55%, a lot of the leaves have stopped becoming brown. And also the new growth is not having those brown tips. And the reason for that is I think the maranta has actually coped and acclimatized to that area of the humidity being a lower humidity. Even though it's a lower humidity, it's actually liking it more. And that's because in the rainforest where the marantas come from, the humidity isn't stable. The humidity doesn't go up extremely and then drops to extreme humidity. It's more constant, it's more stable, so it's able to adapt. And it's best to actually create a household environment that is more stable because it's more likely for the plant to adapt. They can't really adapt quickly to quick changes in the household environment. When it comes to fertilizer, and marantas do need fertilizing, however, strong fertilizer can burn the root system and that can show up in the leaves. And I would always recommend having a fertilizer that is diluted. So dilute the fertilizer to at least 50% and not over fertilizing. I generally only fertilize my maranta when I'm seeing it growing. So that's usually the more warmer weather like spring and summer. I will fertilize it once a month with a diluted liquid fertilizer. When it comes to things like watering, now It is important to get the watering right because marantas, they belong in the prayer plant family. That's also includes things like calatheas, stromantes, and also things like tenanthes as well. And with a maranta, they like the soil to be moist. They don't like it to be soggy. They don't like it to be dry. What I've done with my marantas, I've actually potted it into a self-watering pot, and I just found that's the easiest way for me to actually make sure that my maranta, the soil is constantly moist and not over water and the soil is soggy, and not underwater where the soil is too dry. Now, if you don't want to put it into a self-watering pot, you can do other things to check. You can use a moisture meter, and I usually water my maranta if the moisture meter was about a number 2 or number 3. And if you don't have a moisture meter, no problems, just use your finger, go 2 or 3 inches down into the soil. If you pull your finger out and there's some soil stuck in it, it means that the soil is still moist and you don't need to water it yet. If you don't want to use your fingers because you want to take care of your nails, fair enough, just get a stick and do the same thing. Get any sort of stick, even a chopstick, put it down 2 or 3 inches down into the soil and pull it out. If there's any soil stuck on the stick, it means that the actual soil is still moist. So that's the tips I have to avoid the browning of the leaves on a maranta. If you did enjoy this content, watch this video here where I go more in depth on how to avoid browning of the leaves. And if you did enjoy this video as well, don't forget to hit the likes button and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.